welcome, Mr. Ankit Bhuptani. We were eagerly waiting for you, and welcome once again. Just shortly, even though I've already introduced you, but I'll shortly introduce to all those who have recently joined us. Mr. Ankit Bhuptani, our resource person, is here with us, and he is a gay activist from Mumbai, wears many hats. He's the chairman and the founder of Queer Hindu Alliance in Mumbai, advisor to corporates of inclusivity and diversity, the editor of Gujarati literature magazine Petroju, and has been a part of Mumbai Pride and Parade since 2011. Ankit traveled across the country for 6 months to campaign for Supreme Court's judgment of IPC 377. He is awarded as top global youth leader by World HRD Congress. So welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And I'm so sorry for being a little late. I hope I'm audible to everybody and we can start now.
Yes.
Right. So, first of all, the topic given to me is today the queer activism in India. Before I jump into the topic, I want to take a few minutes to discuss what does activism actually mean. Well, nobody can decide to be activist. Activism is something which comes to you. When you see that your basic fundamental rights or the cause you believe in, whether it's the environment, it could be care for the animals, it could be care for elderly people who you are not. So either when you observe that your own rights or the rights of people, society, country, continent, or the planet Earth around you has been taken away, the rights everyone should get and deserve, not only for ourselves, but maybe for the people around us. May not be only for people around us, but maybe for the next generation. You think that it's time I speak up for this cause. I talk about the rights everyone or the cause I believe in should definitely get. And that is when you become an activist. In
Hello,
Hindi, when you...
Ankit. Hello.
Yes, am I audible?
Sorry for interrupting. Could you please come online so that we can see you?
Oh, am I not online?
Actually, no. Your
Just...
screen is freezing. Yes.
Can you see me now?
Yes, dear. Yes. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So you heard me, right? So as I was saying, that... Hello?
Yes.
Should be able to see me.
Actually, now your presentation is also gone. We are not able to, you are not visible actually.
Oh, okay.
Maybe some camera settings.
Maybe just let me drop off and join again. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Let me drop off and join again.
Sorry.
Can you see me now?
Yes. Now you're visible.
Okay, great. So yes, as I was saying, that the activism means fighting for the cause you really believe in, you really feel passionate for. Now, the subject of queer activism also came to me by this natural process. And as I talk about my life a little bit, or as we go ahead in the presentation, you'll understand that how the queer activism came to me. It was sometimes you feel like the nature wants you to do some things and you happen to be the instrument of it. Something similar like that happened. You're able to see my presentations as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, the story of queer activism in India cannot be talked, completed without talking about Indian Penal Code of 377. Well, the Indian Penal Code of 377 was brought to India by our former ruler British Raj, and they brought this kind of law to almost all the countries they ruled in, which criminalized LGBT relationship in India. It was bought in 1800s, and even after India got its independence, we still continue to follow this law. However, fortunately, 2 years ago, the Honorable Supreme Court of India gave its an historic judgment. After this case being in the courts for over 10-20 years, it repealed Article 377. And in a judgment, one of the line which I really admired by the Honorable Supreme Court of India is this: history owes LGBTQ people an apology. Let me remind the August gathering here that this was the same Supreme Court in 2013 gave a judgment on the same judge on the same case, wherein the Honorable Supreme Court of India said this is a minuscule minority, and for this minuscule minority, laws cannot be changed, and you should not come to the Supreme Court to change the law. If you want the change of the law to happen, please go to the Parliament. And the same Supreme Court, after filing the review petition on the same case, getting rejected, after filing the curative petition in the same case, Supreme Court gives this judgment, in a judgment which says that history owes an apology to queer people. And that's why I think that the Indian judiciary system is one of the finest judiciary available to us on the planet, because it does not even shy away from accepting their own mistakes and correcting it. As you must have seen, the people in the academics world will understand that many of the Supreme Court judgment in India has influenced many other Supreme Courts around the world. When the Taiwan passed the marriage equality bill, it quoted Indian Supreme Court's judgment. Not only that, they also quoted 2009 Delhi High Court judgment on IPC 377, wherein Justice Shah says this beautiful line. It is almost, if you are a person who likes to read law and sometimes poetry within the law, because their judgment is very poetic. And in that, Justice Shah in 2009 judgment of Delhi High Court says that human rights and human dignity cannot be limited to books. It is about emotions. And emotions are free flow like water. For whom I feel the emotions, from whom I fall in love, cannot be decided by me. How can a country which practices democracy, which has the healthy judiciary, independent judiciary, criminalize somebody based on whom they love? This is the quote from Delhi High Court judgment in 2009 given by Justice Shah. So, you see, the legal battle in India was going on for over 20 years. It started with the case got filed in the Delhi High Court. The Delhi High Court repealed Article 377. The case went into Supreme Court by the many fundamental religious institutions, and this is one of the rare time when all the religions came together to fight against queer rights in the Supreme Court. So we had a Hindu petition by Baba Ramdev, we had a Christian council coming together and filing a petition, we also had the Muslim personal law board filing a petition. All of this major three religion in India came together against queer rights and filed a petition in the Supreme Court of India. So case went to the Supreme Court. Again, we lost the case in the Supreme Court. We filed the review petition in the Supreme Court. We lost the review petition as well. And then we filed the curative petition. And by the curative petition, we finally got our judgment. One more interesting thing about the 2018 final judgment of Supreme Court is this judgment was given by the Constitutional Bench of the India. So the judges, 5 bench judges, reviewed the case based on the constitutionality of it. And once we got the clearance from the constitutionality, we got this judgment. It also made one more interesting thing, that it says that queerness is not against the constitution of India, the fundamental rights and the ethos which is promised in the Indian constitution does guarantee the right of equality, right of liberty, and right of prosperity. And based on that, we got this judgment. And hence, we would be in the future, when we file for the, which is already going on in the courts, and all other civil rights and equality petitions, we would have this backing of the constitutional bench of the Supreme Court. This is just a legal part of it, a legal side of it, in a nutshell. Now I want to talk a little bit about what does queerness, how does the queerness get depicted in ancient India, especially in the religions which were born in India, or the Karmic religion, whether it's Hinduism, Jainism, or Buddhism. So I'll talk first about gender diversity. Now, if you see that the gender diversity in India from the ancient time has always been predicted in a fluid way. There were no strict box set up gender roles a person needs to follow. Not only for humans, even for our gods and goddesses. So you can see in the picture on the left hand side, this is a picture of Gopeshwara Mahadev from Vrindavan, which I really adore and very close to my heart, because I really love the Indian god named Krishna. And this image, Lord Shiva, the deity, is depicted always as a masculine. You will see his picture as somebody who is always in the meditation, and a very masculine kind of imagery is being predicted of Lord Shiva. But here, when he comes to the land of Vrindavan, the land of love, where the only male person is Lord Krishna, he comes and portrays himself as in the form of a gopi for love of Lord Krishna. The super masculine takes a female form in process of devotion for his Lord Krishna. On the right hand side top, you will see the different gods and goddesses projected in the form of Ardhanarishwara, wherein half physical form of the god is portrayed as male and other half as female. Below that, you will see more and more depiction of Hindu gods and goddesses projecting gender fluidity. So a female god takes a form of a male god becomes a female god. At times, both the genders are present in the same deity, or at times the deities are gender beyond or gender neutral or binary or without binary. So this kind of imaginary and stories from Puranas, all the way from the time of Vedas, we can see that the gender was always portrayed in a fluid way. And if not always, at least we can see that the Hindu theology is very comfortable with gender being fluid and not something decided by birth. Then we come on and then talk about that was a gender fluidity and gender role, and now we can see that the queerness in terms of their practice was also shown. So we have so many scriptures and so many temples. In my research of over 2 years on queerness in ancient India, I discovered that there are around 32 temples in India where temple walls depicts the queer act of variety of kind of very diverse kind of queer act has been depicted on temple walls, around 32 temples which I have discovered. And in around 16 ancient text, we can find the mention of a queer act in various forms. So whether it's a male female god, or it's a female god falling in love with another male god, or vice versa, and things like that. So ancient Indian text and theology is full with so many queer depictions. The picture in your screen is from the Khajuraho, very famous Khajuraho temples, and in that there is a cave named Balarama cave. This picture is coming from there. This is again from the different set of the caves and the temple carvings within Khajuraho, where you can see four females together. So in my research, I have discovered around 67 Sanskrit words which talks about queer gender and gender expressions and queerness from the Vedic text. And because we don't have much time and that is not the main topic, I'll not go into details of it, but if somebody is interested, in get in touch with me. I'll be happy to share this. So there are 67 Sanskrit words. Today in English, how many do we have? We have L, G, B, T, Q, I, and every 2 years the alphabet soup gets added. Somebody adds one more letter to it, and then it goes on, but not more than 6 or 7. But wherein in ancient time, thousands of years ago, some texts are written like 200 BC, 300 BC. And in this kind of, in this time, in the thousands of years ago, the queerness and a diversity of queerness was depicted in India and was mentioned. But when we have the British Raj, what do we have? We become the criminal in our own land. This picture is of me is from the 2013 when the Supreme Court of India gave its negative judgment and decriminalized us. Criminalized us. We gathered at the protest in Mumbai, and all of us there in the black clothes and protesting against the Supreme Court judgment. And it is from that day, 11th of December 2013. I still remember the day. So let me take you to the journey, what happened in India between 2013 to 2018. Because as I informed that in 2009, Delhi High Court decriminalized it. Then in 2013, Supreme Court of India recriminalized it. So we had the freedom in between. And then we were taken back by the Supreme Court judgment. Our freedom was also taken back along with it. So we ran this campaign called as No Going Back, Ab Vapsi Nahi, that we are not going back to the closet. So many people, after the progressive judgment of Delhi High Court came out, so many families started accepting. We have seen so many of corporate world and workplace have become open towards accepting their queer employees on their face value. And then so much of progress happened in 2013, and now the negative judgment was really a big slap on the human rights movement in India. So we decided we are not going back, and to predict that, we ran a campaign called as No Going Back, Ab Vapsi Nahi. Now, let me take few minutes to talk about on the day of the judgment, because it's very important for anybody who wants to understand the queer activism in India, and then what happened till 2018. So, as many of you are Indian here, as I can see, that would know, and for all the foreign audience as well, that whenever the Supreme Court of India gives us any big judgment, which gonna create a history and a landmark and something historic, they give a judgment around 11 o'clock in the morning. So we had gathered, all the community members had gathered at this NGO called Humsafar Trust, which works on queer rights in India, to be and to receive the judgment, whether it's a negative or positive, whatever it is. We wanted to be with the fellow community members because it was the day where we would be decided, are we criminal in our own country or not? So on 11th of December 2013, when the judgment came at 11 o'clock, it was a negative judgment. We all were so disappointed. And at the same time, this NGO office was filled with so many media people, with so many media cameras, and journalists wanted to take the bites of the queer activists there and what is their take on it. There were live TV debates, as India has over 400 24 hours news channels in different languages, probably maximum number of the news channels in the world. And then everybody wants to run a debate. And the number of people who were out at that time were limited in that office. And the number of news channels was much more. So they were looking for people who can come on the news channels and talk about it. Especially all the well-known activists at that time were busy with big news channels and in media houses like BBC, CNN, NDTV, Times Now, and things like that. But there are so many regional news channels who were also looking for people. So they were asking that, would you like to talk? Would you like to talk on the camera? And not just give the bites, but take part in the TV debates. And I said, okay, it's time that I need to come out. And that was the first time I showed my face on the camera. And I took part in the TV debate. So from the 11 o'clock when the judgment came in, the fine print of the Supreme Court judgment, which is the actual judgment, gets uploaded on the Supreme Court website in the evening time, around 6, 7 o'clock. So we don't know. We know that we have lost the case from morning 11 o'clock till evening 7 o'clock, but we don't know on what grounds our case has been lost. What exactly is the Supreme Court saying in the judgment? Till the time the Supreme Court uploads the final copy of the judgment on its website, which is generally around evening time, 7, 6 p.m. afterwards. So from 11 o'clock to 6 p.m., I was on the constantly variety of news channels debating. And when the Supreme Court uploads its judgment, we all eagerly waiting and we start to read and understand what it meant, because most of the time the judgment, the legal documents are of hundreds of pages, and all of our attention comes to this one line, that this is the minuscule minority for which the Supreme Court not give and change the law. It was very painful. It was very much heartbreaking and disappointing. So we had this press releases printed with us, which talks about just a one page, which talked about how the Supreme Court of India gives every Indian the right of equality, liberty, and prosperity, and justice, and so on and so forth. That's a preamble of the country, of the constitution, and how we as a community are feeling disappointed because we had kept a very high hope from our judiciary, because our democracy depends on the vote bank. So probably political party may think that doing something for LGBT rights may not be good for their vote banks in the country. So the only active hope we had was from the Supreme Court and from the judiciary. So at 7 o'clock around, I take a train back, Mumbai local train back, to come back to my home. And then, as many of you would have experienced if you have come to Mumbai, if not, please do come and experience that. And if not, you must have seen it on pictures and TV, that how Mumbai local trains are crowded, especially during the peak hours. So I had this press release with me in my hand, which had the first page of preamble of the Constitution. I feel disappointed. It was in Hindi, Marathi, and English. And I take a train back from Kurla station to come back to Dombivli, where I stay. The journey is of 1 hour. And I don't know what happened to me. I suddenly stood in a crowded Mumbai local train. Now I want you to really imagine, there's, as you can see on the picture, that is how I used to look in 2013. And this tiny little school-going boy, probably looking like school. I was not school-going boy for sure, but looks like one. Is suddenly standing in the crowded local Mumbai train, and how a person sells things like 10 rupees, two pen or two ball pen for 10 rupees, or selling some things like colors and things like that in the crowded local train in Mumbai. The same way, I stood in a crowded local Mumbai train with the press release with my hand, which had the preamble of the Constitution, and started talking in Hindi and Marathi, in the language people could understand, that how my rights has been taken away by the same institution which was supposed to protect my rights. And the reaction was quite surprising. People were acting as if they are not listening to me, or looking at me and laughing. Some of the people would really understand it. And after I do my talk, which was just that how we are feeling disappointed, and do I deserve to go to jail just because of the person whom I happen to love happens to be of the same gender? And the punishment could be given under Article 377 is life imprisonment to 10 years, to the punishment you would give to a rapist or a murderer in a country, that is 10 years to life imprisonment or more than it. Do I deserve that punishment because the person whom I happen to love happens to be of the same gender? This has to say in Hindi and Marathi, in the language people will understand. And this journey continued. I traveled around 5 states of the country for 6 months and did around 500 public talks. And did it in the regional languages, in a tier 2 cities, in the villages, because I saw that the queer activism was limited to metropolitan cities like Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. What I saw was that this conversation was limited to English-speaking crowd. And if I come on the news channel talking in fine English, talking about my rights, and if somebody doesn't understand or accept it, he could stop my voice on the click of a remote control. He can just change the channel and my voice would be silenced. He can never listen to me. What other option I had? I didn't want it to be the so-called five-star activist who would be well known on international forums and on news channels and people will invite them and talk about it. I really wanted to bring a change from ground. So I left my job. I saw my bank balance. Let me share, I just had 80,000 rupees in my bank account and I survived for 6 months doing this activism. I went to villages. I took the state transport. I lived in a places for only 20 rupees a night, in that kind of dharamshalas and the places in the lounge. I asked for people to feed me. And this kind of travel, extensive country travel in 5 states I did. After that, in one of the news interviews, one reporter asked me that, did I achieve something which I wanted to achieve? Did I really bring the change which I wanted to achieve? And I answered back to that reporter at that time saying that, of course not. Not all 100% of people. I would have reached out to thousands of people, because you take any bus, public transport bus, or a train, or you stand outside a vegetable market, or you stand outside a mosque or a college or a temple. Anywhere I could see the people get gathered in the public place, I would start talking, whether it's outside the mall, anywhere. So I don't know how many people I reached out to. Of course, numbers would be thousands or lakhs. And of course, not all of them understood what I wanted to say and what I was conveying. But one thing definitely happened to all 100% people I reached out to. And do you know what is that? That when you see something weird or different, what do? You will tell to 2 people around you, right? That happens when you see a good movie. Oh, this is Harry Potter new series is amazing, right? Or I purchased this new phone which is working very nice or not so good. Same thing when you see something different, you like or dislike, but you create an intensive emotions for it, you talk to 2 more people. So for an example, if I am doing this kind of a talk in a local train, say around 100 people, of course more than 100 in a crowded Mumbai local train in one compartment, but say 100 people heard me talking about it. What will happen? This 100 people will tell to at least 20 more people. What is happening? Here, that they could question that if somebody sitting next to me in a local train in India can be queer, that means somebody living next to my home can also be queer. If somebody living next to my door can be queer, somebody living in my home can also be queer. So what's the difference? The difference between the weird kid I saw in the local train today or in the market or in the bus and the person living in my home is that that person had the courage to talk about it and the person living in my home may not have the courage. And am I the reason this person is not having the courage? It also meant one more thing to 100% of the people, and that is that this myth that queerness is imported from Western countries and from the developed countries to India was broken, because here's was somebody who was born in India talking about in a language they could understand, the regional language in Gujarati, Marathi, Hindi, and talking about from the constitutional point of view of India, and talking about Indian constitution, Indian Supreme Court, Indian judiciary, and the rights each and every Indian was promised when India was becoming independent. This myth of it being a Western import could break it up. And that is what happening. Irrespective of they accepted me or not, it doesn't matter. But at least this little question was seeded in their mind that am I the reason person living in my home is not talking about it? And second, it is not a Western concept was happening to all the people listening. In this journey, I was jailed twice because, of course, you can't talk against the Supreme Court of India directly like this. On top of it, you need to really take permissions to do any kind of activism and public advocacy in a public places, especially within the train. Of course, I did not take any of that. I just did because I wanted to do it. And I was jailed twice, but it was just one night and some warning, and I was released the next day. Anyway, so that was just an activism part, but my public activism part, but my activism did not stop there. So I started an organization called Gay Lesbian Vaishnava Association, and now it is called Square Hindu Alliance, where we had performed gay weddings as well. So here you can see two of my very good close friends getting married. They look so cute, isn't it? And likewise, we conducted 7 queer weddings in India so far. I'm also part of the Mumbai Pride organizing committee since 2010. So for last 10 years, I have been actively organizing Mumbai Pride Parade. And Mumbai Pride is India's one of the biggest pride event happening in the country, which when we get not only the people from different states of the country, but we also get many international footfalls as well. And Mumbai Pride is, in a way, is not just one day, but we celebrate the Pride Month, wherein we have diversities of events across the city of Mumbai, and then we all come together for the annual Pride walk together, which has been happening for last 10 years now. I have been quite open and in talking about queer rights in media as well as outside the media. Another part of my work focuses on now that I have we have got our rights, at least we are not criminal anymore. My work area focuses in terms of activism in 3 states. The first one is talking about diversity and inclusion in classrooms. Second part is talking about diversity and inclusion in workplace. And third part is making faith and religious institutions accepting of LGBTQI issues. So under the Diversity and Inclusion Act and the work which I do in workplace, I do capacity building of many corporates and business houses in India and multinational companies as well. On the left, you can see I was speaking at NASCOM Business Conference, which is one of the leading conference for business and investment in Asia, not just India. And here I was shared one thought of mine, which I've written there, is that now that Article 377 has gone, any company doing business in India do not talk about LGBT rights in their policy. They're nothing but a homophobic company, in my understanding. And many business leaders and in CEOs were there in that conference where I talked. On the right hand side, you can see that I'm on the panel discussion with one of the leading financial companies in the world called BlackRock, which is an American company. And likewise, I have been doing capacity building of so many other corporate companies as well. And by making this, what we do is we change the policy and we help the company in recognizing the LGBTQI employees within their business, because it is also good for the business. This is not the topic of my presentation today, but it is assumed that around 6% of the public population is considered to be queer. And if that is so, the market value of 6% of Indian GDP would be too huge. So there is a huge market out there. If you are talking about LGBT rights, you can reach out to this market. So it's not just a good thing to do, it is a good business strategy of growth as well. And if anybody of you is interested to know more about how do we talk about diversity and inclusion in workplace from the business case point of view, please reach out to me after this presentation. I'll be happy to share more information on that. Then, as I talked about, that my another area of work focuses on making education institutes and more inclusive and recognize LGBTQIA people and the children and students. And that is when we discover our differentness. Me and so many queer people around the world will tell you that when they discovered themselves, they thought that they are the only one in the world and they are the different from the world. And this discovery happens when we are mostly in the school, maybe in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. If we reach out to children at the right age and give them the message that there is nothing wrong with you, because we see a lot of depression to the extent of even suicide case happening in children because they get bullied in the school, not only by their peer students but at times by their parents, at times by their teachers as well, and adults in their lives. So if we can give this right information, which is scientific information, then there is nothing wrong in case you discover yourself to be different from other children. We will be able to prevent lot of depression cases and suicide cases within teenage children. So here I am talking about and doing workshops within less privileged BMC school. That's a government-run schools which are run for the less privileged communities in Mumbai. And I have done over 70 schools capacity building and over 150 teachers I have taught in terms of how do you deal with children when they discover themselves to be different, because they will also be confused at that time. They will be not sure about themselves. On top of it, how do you do better classroom management in terms of queer inclusion in the classroom? From that, too, I have done the capacity building of many universities and big education institutions as well. So here I am at Columbia University in New York, talking about the same issues. And then 2 years ago, I also addressed the United Nations Assembly on Human Rights in Geneva. And then how I talked about how important it is for everyone to talk about queer rights. Because change in the society cannot happen till the time all the section of the society feel need to contribute towards the cause. And I addressed many politicians, world leaders, bureaucrats, policymakers in terms of how the queerness and queer activism really need to take a center stage. And after that, I'm happy to share that the United Nations have an independent expert on LGBT rights who looks at various countries and gives the recommendation to respective countries on the subject. uh, I have founded this support group called the Square Hindu Alliance, as I talked about. And then one of the activity which we did during the lockdown is we distributed grocery kits, because there are so many queer people who live, especially the transgender, who live below poverty line in India. They do begging and other activities for their survival. And when the COVID-19 pandemic happened and the lockdown was implemented, their income source were completely stopped. At the same time, so many queer people work in a very small jobs in malls, in restaurants, far away from their family. They don't feel comfortable to going back to home because their family do not accept them, and they can't live in the city because their incomes have stopped now. So for them also, for them to help them survive this lockdown period and challenging time, we put out the message to everybody that if anybody is looking out for help, they can reach out to us. We will do a direct transfer of money so that you can purchase whatever the essentials are needed, or you can pay the rent of your home or whatever, so that you don't come on the streets and you will survive that lockdown period. And on the other side, we saw that so many of mental health cases were coming up. Unfortunately, in last 4 months, we have seen over 10 cases of suicide happening in India of queer individual. And then mental health is something, it's a really topic to be discussed in India, especially within the LGBTQIA community. So with that, we set up a helpline wherein they could reach out to us and talk to us, and then we will connect them to the health providers, mental health providers, for free of charge, and they would give them the services. Or if they want to talk to a buddy, just without a professional, those services were also made possible, which is also active currently. And we reached out to over 300 people and did the distribution of 1.5 lakh rupees. And we are really happy that we being the instrument of help to few hundred people in the country right now. But as I talk about India, I also want to take few minutes at the end of my presentation to talk about the world as well. Yes, India has got decriminalization currently, but that's not the end. We are also fighting for marriage equality, adoption rights, anti-discrimination law, and all other civil rights. At the same time, if you see at this map of the world, the dark color represents where even today in 2020, a person can be given a capital punishment. That means a state can murder a queer individual just because he or she or they are queer. And more than 7 countries in the world where I can be hung or thrown from the tall building just because I am queer. It is an unfortunate state, and we really need to work on that. There are over 20 countries where I can be put behind the bars in jail for 10 years or more than it just because I happen to be queer. So, as I talk about as an activist in India, I also talk about, and we as a community come to talk about this state of human rights violation happening in many countries on the planet currently. And let me end uh, with this quote that I consider still as an hopeful person, as an optimist person. I think that my generation is the luckiest queer Indian generation in India. Do you know why? Because we have seen the days from being criminal to being discriminalized, and hopefully we will be seeing the day of marriage equality, adoption rights, and other civil rights in our own lifetime. This fortune no other queer generation in India in past had got or may not get in the future as well. So what a lucky time to born in, to fight for the cause, to work for the community, and also to see with our own eyes those movements getting its fruits. We were not born when India was struggling for its independence. And it is said that a generation which fights for the independence cares and respects that independence the most. Later, somehow we take it for granted. I am from the generation who is leading the second independence movement in India of queer liberation. And I'm happy and glad I'm born here in this time and observing this history and making. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and listening to me. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Ankit. It was really a wonderful presentation from your end, an enlightening one. And this is a queer is a topic wherein you are really working hard to make it such a wonderful. You're taking out your rights so well, and you are a true idol, true activist working. What I feel is students or the youngsters, you are an inspiration for youngsters, and I'm sure you will get all your rights, the legal and the social acceptance, which is a need of the hour actually. So very well done, great presentation. We have lots of compliments for you in our chat box. Let's have few questions also.
Yes, please.
Okay, we have a question from S. Franz Joyson, the president of Lavender Literary Club. He says, can you tell if someone is gay, lesbian, just by how they look from others? This is the first question. He has three. The second one, at what age one recognize himself or herself as gay? And the third one, can doctor make someone straight?
Thank you. Thank you for asking these wonderful questions, because these questions are coming again and again by many people, and many people have this question. At times, they don't have courage to ask these questions. So, thank you for asking this question, Doctor or Professor. Well, to answer your first question, what was the first question? Sorry.
Yeah, just a second. Can you tell if someone is gay or lesbian just by
Yeah, yeah. Correct. So no, your appearance has nothing to do with your orientation. Somebody who is effeminate may not be queer, who is somebody who's male effeminate may not be queer, and somebody who is so masculine can also be queer. Same happens for the women as well. So your expression, your gender expression, has nothing to do with your orientation. It's like a scale, wherein 1 and 10, if I say, so the 1 is absolute feminine and 10 is being absolute masculine. And nobody in the world is there at absolute 1 or absolute 10. We all, in terms of our gender expressions, are somewhere in between, right? So it doesn't matter where you are at which point on this scale, but it has nothing to do with your orientation. Same, there is another scale of, wait, if I can show to you, there is in our conversation in academia, we use this genderbread cartoon. Yeah. Yeah, here it is. Are you able to see my screen, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see that in head is your identity. What do you identify yourself as? In terms of gender, am I a male or a female? Your orientation is about your heart, whom you love. And your private parts is about your with whom you make out with or with whom you make love with. All three can be different for different people. All right? So the gender identity is about the brain. How your brain thinks that what your gender identity is. Is it a cisgender? That means the gender by which you were born with. If you're a male, doctor said congratulations, you have a baby boy. Or if you're a female, doctor says that congratulations, you have a baby girl. And in lakhs of cases are not clear, ambiguous, that are called as intersex. So apart from this three gender, there cannot be fourth biological gender. I'm talking about a gender which is recognized at the time of birth. But your gender identity is about your brain. How your brain considers your gender role and gender identity to be, which can be diverse, right, in the scale. Then second is about gender expression, the second scale which is shown, which is about how do you express yourself to the world around you. Is it in the form of male? Is it in the form of a female? Is it in the form of both? Or it is in the form of something different? It's about your gender expression. Then is your physical attraction, that whom you feel attracted to. Is it a male or female or trans or anything else? And whom do you get emotionally attached to? So everything of this, your gender, biological gender, your gender identity, and your gender expression, and your orientation, this 4 scale is like a scale from 1 to 10, where is 1 being absolute male and 10 being absolute female. And we all are in somewhere this scale. We all human, irrespective if you are queer or non-queer. For somebody who is not queer, who is straight, as in the biological male, who's considered himself as male, biologically male, consider himself as male and is interested in female, right? But in my case, I'm biologically male. I consider myself as male itself. I don't consider myself as female. So my gender identity is male and I'm interested in male emotionally and physically. So that's why I call myself as gay. So everyone is in a different scale from this, on this scale. Now, second question is, can somebody change? Third question was, can it be changed by a doctor? No, you can't. And it is one of the part which I'm working currently with many governments or through United Nations, wherein we are trying to put a ban, legal ban on conversion therapy. All the scientific research have told us by now that you really can't change person's gender identity or orientation, no matter how much you try. You just end up making that person suffer by electricity, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and even today in some parts of the world, shock therapy is given to change it, but it will not work. It will really not work. It is scientifically proven that what you are is you are by nature, and it cannot be changed. It's not a disease which you overcome with. It's not a phase which you get over with. It is what you are by birth, and it is a nature you really can't change. Can I change my skin color? No matter how much tan I want to become. Can I change my eye color? No matter how much blue eyes I want. I may have a act of having a blue eye by wearing a lens. The same way, so many queer people are forced into heterosexual marriage. That doesn't mean that they have become straight. It's an act, not their orientation. What was the second question?
Second question, I think you've already described in such a wonderful way. So we'll move on to another question by Ramakrishna Ji. He says, is there any specific age to understand gender identity? If a child finds queer, how parents should react?
Okay.
Please tell how to develop social acceptance to queer people wherein we are not given equal rights to women in this world.
Wonderful question. Thank you. So, first part is when a child discovers there is no particular age, but at the time of puberty, around say when a child is on seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade onwards, is when children discover that. But they are not too sure at that time, right? And it takes time. I have seen a 40-year-old person as well, not too sure that is he queer or not, having been married, having two children who are settled down, who are also have got married, and then at the age of 41, he discovers and announce everybody that okay, I have done my life, everything is done, and now I'll be living my whatever the rest of my life the way I want. So there is no particular age which we can put into, but on an average, when we are in our school age after seventh standard, that is around 13 years or something, is when we generally discover. Also depends on our society in the country, because what time you talk about it, the conversation happening around you, your culture, and then things like that. Second part of the question is if women are not given rights, how do we talk about it of the queer rights? Where it's not about either or, right? It's not about that I need to talk about women rights, then I cannot talk about queer rights, and it's not about I can talk about animal rights, I cannot talk about say environment rights. Uh, it's about everything together. So yes, I understand the women rights is all having their own challenge, and a lot needs to be done in that area. At the same time, queer rights also need to be talked about in whatever capacity we can. So if you are a person who advocates, say, for the women's rights, I will come and join your rally. I will come and join your in supporting the women's rights, because I also believe that women should have the equal rights. At the same time, I invite you that when I talk about queer rights, or in whatever capacity you hear about LGBT rights, in your office, in your university, in colleges, there is somebody making fun of it. Is to talk about that, no, what you're talking is wrong. And be the voice of queer rights as well. We all can have multiple hats together. And to answer your third question, how does the parents deal with it? I think that I always say this, that when a parent needs to also become a child when they discover the children to be queer. What do I mean by being a child? I mean is when we as a kid discovered this new world, we had so many questions, didn't we? And we took our own time to understand it. The same way, parents need to get into the children's zone in questioning everything and trying to understand from the real, genuine care mode and not from the rejection mode. And understand that whatever your child is, that is how he, she, or they are. You can't really change. Either you accept it or reject it. So I think from the point of view of every parent is, which is a care, love, uh, if you approach this subject, I'm sure you would be able to accept your children. But at least don't try to force them to change it, because it will end up ruining their life. And if they are not happy, how can you as a parent be happy? Any other questions?
Yes, I have one query. Right?
Yes, please.
Dear Ankit, could you please light us on your role on Hinduism and two souls, the idea of two souls, and about your foundation and your role in gay marriages, so that we
Sure.
can also understand the religious and philosophical perspective from your point of view. Here, Shafi Noor, Professor Rashid, and other participants are also here, who are from Bangladesh, I mean in abroad, so they also can understand this concept.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, well, I personally believe that the time of a change by political leadership has come to an end, or it is declining. So, the future leadership will be in the two domain. One is the media. The media we consume, whether it's a movie, news channels, literature, all kind of media. The story they tell us influence our society, social mind, and the thoughts we believe in, opinions we create, and so on and so forth. And second epicenter of the leadership is with the spiritual leadership and the religious organizations, and it will increase as we grow more and more towards materialism, and we find that what next in life. As you can see that the interest of public general interest in spirituality is increasing in last decade. So I think that this two leadership, if this two leadership will be uh, sensitive enough to talk about LGBT rights and queer rights, they will give a better direction to the society. And that's why a lot of my area focuses on working with this two leadership. In terms of religious leaders and spiritual leadership, I think that it's time that we talk about our own queer heritage, especially in a country like India, where majority population is Hindu, and three world religion has been born out of this land. That's Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism. And all of these three religion have depicted and talked about somehow their comfort towards diverse way of living and not just a stereotypical binary way of living, and then queerness. And that's why I think that it can be used as a tool of advocacy. So we at Queer Hindu Alliance try to give the stories and a prediction from the Hinduism, which is talking about comfort with queerness and religion. At the Queer Hindu Alliance, we lobby with different spiritual organizations and leaders and do their sensitization, make them understand that by talking about queer rights, you're not going against Hinduism, but you are actually projecting the core ethos of Hinduism, which is acceptance, tolerance, love, and so on and so forth, and respecting diversity. So that's why Queer Hindu Alliances, one of the main focus is to lobby and make religious leadership sensitized towards the subject. Another part of the Queer Hindu Alliance work is focusing on within the community. Like many parents have the questions about their children, especially in terms of religion. What does the religion has to say about my child's orientation? So we give them the answers from our scriptures and mythology and theology. And third part is when the community is in the need, we are there to support. So like during the lockdown, during the COVID time, and then all of this thing, you can currently also we are helping the community in whatever possible way we can, whether it's is providing them with the necessary survival things or helping them with their mental health state and so on and so forth. So these are the ways Queer Hindu Alliance is working currently.
Thank you so much, Ankit. One another query. Do you think that we use the word, we don't have in English language also, now we have started to pronoun, giving a pronoun as they, and queer word itself is quite uncomfortable. This is what I feel when I say queer or third gender. Why there is there is a hierarchy: first gender, second gender, and third gender, and we call LGBT as a third gender. So, do you think that we still need to be explore and more give another other terms to third gender?
Well, to be very honest, in English, the word queer is something you can definitely use because it is combining of everything which is not mainstream. Okay, so the word queer, the history of the word queer comes from in America, where it was used as abused as you are an outcast person, you are out of the society, you are the weird person. So the majority of the society used to use this term towards the minority of LGBT community and say that, oh, you're queer, you're queer. I mean, as an abuse. Wherein then the turn came in the queer movement in India that they started accepting this word. Okay, you're calling us queer. Okay, we are queer. So what? All right. So the queer word includes all kind of diverse gender identities and orientations. And word is inclusive of all of this thing. I don't think so. There is a need of any other words. But then in academia, especially in the UN language, we have started coming up with another term. As you can see in the screen, let me show it to you, called as soji. Uh, It's called a Soji. I'm not able to get the correct one, Google one right now. I wanted to show the UN charter in which the language is used. But anyway, that means Soji, that means that diverse orientation, gender identity, and expression, which also includes everything into it. So it's just about the term which you want to use. You can use the queer, you can use the LGBTQIA, you can use the word Soji, SE, whatever you are comfortable with.
Uh, any more questions?
Thank you so much, Ankit. Thank you.
So thank you
Yes. Do
so
you have
much,
any question?
Ankit. No, I think there are no more further questions. Thank you. Thanks a ton. Yeah, really, you are a rock star and working for the youngsters. It's so nice to listen to your presentation and in a really enlightening one. Thank you so much and all the best to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and privilege to speak at academic conferences where all of you are doctors and double PhD and whatnot, or a professor, and I'm none of that. So I'm really honored to get this opportunity to speak at this international forum with all of you with great knowledge here. And I hope that whatever little I could contribute to this conversation will help you to understand the subject a little bit more, and you would also be the voice of change in whatever little capacity you will be in your space. Thank you again.